Fellas, what's going on? I hope this episode finds you well, and as always, I hope this episode leaves you better than when it found you. Today's episode is with Chris Gray, and he's a longtime friend, someone I met in a dad's group, and someone who has continued to be in and around the worlds that I've been, and someone who I've really looked to and admired for not only the things that he's doing, the business he's running, the family he's building, but really the individual that he is. And we talk about all sorts of things, life, jiu-jitsu, family. And so it is a fantastic conversation that I think you're going to enjoy, and one of our first that we're doing in person. So enjoy today's conversation with Chris Gray.
Chris Gray, welcome to Modern Masculinity, man. Thank you for being here.
I am happy to be here with my man Hector Connectors. This is going to be dope.
One of the things we always do with our guests is ask the guys to share what they're going through, whether it can sound weird, the load they're carrying, right? Sometimes that might sound weird. Some religious people might say the cross they're bearing, but as men, we are, we have a lot of weight that we carry, responsibilities, and you're a father, a partner, a business owner, all these different roles. What are you still working through, or what load you're still carrying at the stage?
Bro, you're coming out heavy, right? Coming out hot. I like this. What comes to mind, Hector, is I've been on this path of awareness. I've meditated for years now, but like really getting into mindfulness and awareness this last, 8 months or so as we record. And here's something that I realized. At first, I was like, oh man, my ego is an asshole. It's the enemy. It is when this bad boy is in control, nothing good happens. And so I've villainized my ego, right? This is as part of my growth here. I've kind of villainized my ego. Well, if I villainize my ego, that ego is still a part of me. So if I'm villainizing it, then I'm not liking, or I'm villainizing a part of myself. And I want to love all of me, even the bad parts. I don't have to act on them, but I want to love them. So I was like, my homeboy, made me aware. Shout out to Tucker Max, you know him from Front Row Dads. He pointed this out to me, and I really chewed on it. And I was like, yo, if I want to love all of me, I have to love my ego. And here's where I landed with this. And this is what I'm working on right now as we speak. I've learned that my ego is like a well-meaning but overbearing parent. Where like they're telling you all this stuff because they really want what's best for you. But like you can't listen to most of that because they're overbearing or whatever. Or my ego is like a GPS where it's important. The ego, you have to have the ego. It's important. It serves an important role. Like the GPS, it guides you, but the GPS is not meant to actually drive. The ego, for me, is here to guide me. It is not meant to drive. So what that looks like for me now is when something pops up and I know it's ego driven. Like for me, for example, I found out that I crave external validation way more than I thought I did. I really crave it. And my ego, I could see it happening in my ego. It's like, it's just trying to help me find that in ways that are not healthy. So when that pops up back in the day, I'd be like, no, there was a resistance to that thought. There was I don't like that or whatever. Now, when that pops up, it's like, oh, I see what you're doing, homie. And I appreciate it. But like, this is what we're going to do now. Or I see what you're doing. You're trying to protect us, and thanks, but this is what we're going to do. So it's popping up, and it'll give me some things. And I'll just say, I acknowledge it and I appreciate it. Like truly appreciate. I really appreciate what you're trying to do, but that's not going to serve us right now. We're going to go this way. In doing that, that voice starts to get a little quieter and quiet. It still pops up, but it's not popping up as much as it was maybe 4 weeks ago. And I'm not doing anything. I'm just, I'm acknowledging. I appreciate you. I'm not going to do that.
I think one of the parts that men, I don't like to use the word need to, but I think one of the skills that a modern man might develop if they want to succeed or thrive in this world is the ability to sort of go inward and figure out what the fuck is going on inside.
Yes.
And pick out what are those voices and who are those voices. For me, it was the voices running in my head were my parents or the teachers or society. Or I sat with it and it was like, that's not your voice. That's coming through. That's not you that's talking. And one thing I've talked about on the show is I remember early on, it was like one of the first days I had without my kids. my ex and I were going through. It was like one of the first days where it was then with her. I remember not knowing what the fuck to do with myself, and I just started washing dishes. And I was like, what are you doing? Like what and I was like, oh, there's this program, like someone else, you're living someone else's life expectations, all these sorts of things. And I had to kind of be willing to put those down, right? And figure out what it was that what do I want, right? And part of it was going back to my younger self and making peace with the different parts and pieces of me that you know one of them was like my middle school seventh grade self that uh got broken up with, right? My girlfriend, she ran off to be with this big black dude. And, like, man. And I remember, I say it kind of jokingly now, but I remember starting to really like there was real judgment against myself in that point, right? Of me being less than. And it comes up again, with after my divorce when my ex-wife, now she's got a new guy. And it's like all these similar stories starting to bubble up. And it's like, it was when I went back and made peace with my seventh grade sort of self that all of a sudden things in my current situation started becoming, those voices started to quiet down. Because my seventh grade self, he was cool now. He was shown the love that he needed. So now he could quiet down. Now he didn't have to be, piping up when all this other shit was happening, 20 some years later.
I love the fact that you were able to recognize that and then love those individual pieces of yourself. And that's something else that I realized as I've gotten older is there's these different versions of myself that things happen to, like that 10 to 12-year-old self, like is still looking for something and still craving something. So even though I'm 44, certain behaviors I do are really my 10 to 12-year-old self.
Yeah. What you mentioned, we're at a for the listeners, we're at an event here, and that's what some of the background chattering is. But you mentioned that this week you started reading the Bible. Hopefully that's okay to share with the listeners. But you've gone inward, quite a bit. I'm curious that journey. Maybe when did it start? When did this iteration of this journey start? And then we can kind of catch up to now.
Hector is coming with the bombs. This is cool because this is something I haven't shared publicly, not to this magnitude. And I'm glad that you asked this because this is something that I normally wouldn't talk about, and I appreciate it. When I was 21, I got into a church. Long story short, the church was so legalistic and so legalistic that it was almost cult-like. So I was a Christian, but I was like Navy SEAL Christian.
Well, get the listeners know, get your bingo card because I was Catholic. They know that that's on the Modern Masculinity bingo card we talk about. So I get it.
Yeah. Heavy. And then long story short, some stuff happened where I was like, you know what? I don't think if this is God, this cannot be God's way. And so I did what I do, the exact opposite. Like this is all bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to now. I find myself, Hector, surrounded by Christians and not like, I'm in Texas, man. So everybody says they're Christian. Like, they all say it. But like when you look at their life, it's like, yo, like I don't see anything besides that cross on your chest or on your trailer that represents Christianity or something. Like I don't see anything. But I'm around some Christians that really walk it like they talk it. And so another long story short, this past week, I started reading the Bible. And there's many different ways the Bible can be interpreted. Like, and that happens with people. Like, you grew up Catholic. Like, so the way, if you read a verse today and you'll get something from it, and then 5 years from now, you read that exact same verse, you'll get something totally different from it. It just depends on where you're at in life. So the Bible can be interpreted in several different ways. One of the ways I interpret it is through the lens of awareness. And through that lens, there's other interpretations. Yes, everybody has their ways, but through the lens of awareness, I think some of those lessons are powerful. Like some of the stuff that Jesus was dropping or whoever, like for me as an allegory, when I view it through those lenses, man, those things really, really stand out to me. And so, and that's what's landed for me. Like it's been very, I don't know what the word I want to look for, but it lands for me. I can by no means go and say, hey, start, what's the word, evangelizing and telling everybody they need to do this. I'm saying for me and the way I interpret it right now, it just feels right. So I'm going to stick with it.
I mean, anybody who doesn't like, who thinks that like Jesus is like a bad dude. I don't know. Maybe there are those people who think that he's like a bad dude out there. But I think that that's sort of the thing that was lost for me was, I turned away from the Catholic, because of all the rules and the regulations. And like, I got caught up because it was like, they have a rule, a commandment or whatever. It was like, you have to go to reconciliation. You have to go tell all your sins to confession on Saturday. And if you don't do that, you can't, participate on Sunday. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. Like my 10-year-old self is trying to do the math. And I'm like, wait a minute, if I sin on Wednesday and I die before Saturday, I'm not getting in there. Yeah. All these rules. And in that you lose the meaning. You lose that, wait a minute. No, like you take all that away. Jesus is creating this model for how to approach life, this model for how to be a father, how to be a man, how to be it gets, the whole husband thing is all weird, but he's this model of I think masculinity in its most integrated form. Right, the ability, you can go into all of it, but like him as a man, strip away all of the crazy things that people say he's done, like just him as a person has demonstrated an amazing system for someone to live there. I think that has to be
the examples have to be acknowledged, and the metaphors are so powerful. And again, I mean, I know some Christians who say this is the way, this is the only way. I know some Mormons who say this is the way, or some Latter-day Saints who say this is the way, that's the only way. I know some Muslims, this is the way, that's the only way. And so the question becomes, who's right? One of y'all got to be wrong, but all of y'all are equally convicted. So for me, it's almost like, you and I are jiu-jitsu guys, right? Jiu-jitsu works. Like we know that. Jiu-jitsu works. But you have a style. It's going to be very different from my style. It's very different from this other person's style. We all have different ways of getting there, but it works. And that's kind of how I view at this stage, like whatever your way, your path, as long as there is true love behind it and peace, like true love behind that path, who am I to say that's wrong or don't do that? Like, and I find that principle in life. Like it's in businesses, right? Like you can have one person has a business approach, the other person has another business approach. They're both wildly successful. They just have different styles. Like you find this concept as a general principle. And then one more thing that you said that stood out to me, and one more thing is that like the rules, like the legalism, which is what got me. Like I don't know, how can I know about it? It's impossible. My little peanut brain can't wrap. There's no way we could. I don't see how we could just wrap our like we know God. Like how your brain can't. It would pop. So a God that big that we can't even fathom is set to these specific rules that if you don't do A, then you won't get B. Like I don't know. It's got to be more than that. It's just got to be.
Yeah, I think we're both very practical, and I came up in the entrepreneurship, personal development world. Like, give me all the answers. Like, tell me what to do. And it took me a long time to realize that not all advice is right for everybody. And in that, it's the same vein of everybody has their own style of doing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be certain things that work for some people and some things that work for other people. And so this concept of masculinity that comes up, I got into this space because it's like, I got thrown into it. I wanted to figure out my own life, but it's becoming more of a hot topic because it seems like whether it's politics or all these sorts of things, are asking like, what is masculinity? How should it be, or how should it? And after I've done, I think we're on episode 100 and something. It's just like the only thing I've gathered is that it's your own. You get to decide.
Right. Yes.
You get to decide. And it's like, it's fucked up that like that's the answer I've come to. There is no one answer. But in today's world, that's sort of where we're at, where you get to define. There are some, don't hurt anybody, but like outside of that, there is you have some ability to define what that means.
And again, another principle that I find to hold true in many different ways is I used to say back in the dating world, like when I was dating, whatever, like I know women because I know I will never understand women. So that's me knowing. Back to jiu-jitsu, high level jiu-jitsu guys, like they've been doing it since they were 4. They know jiu-jitsu because they know they will never fully know jiu-jitsu. It's always evolving. Same thing with marketing. And then why not here? Like I know it because I know that don't fully know it. And I think there's wisdom. I'm not saying I'm wise. I'm saying there's wisdom within that concept.
Yeah, I think another thing that I find a lot of guys struggle with is like searching for something outside of themselves. You know,
Mhm.
I tried to grow into this person, right? Let me be more masculine for you. Let me be somebody else. Let me, you know, for me, it's like, let me go fucking pretend I like to play golf. I did that for God knows how long. And even my parents still, they're like, yeah, should we buy you a golf? I'm like, I don't fucking want golf shit. I went to go play golf because she wanted to play. Buy me fucking a rash guard, you know, because when I think about what would I rather spend my time doing, it's like, oh yeah, when I do what other people want me to do, or I pretend that I want to do those things, it's a drag, it's a labor, it's draining, it's burnout, it's exhausting. But when I take time to reflect on like what do I actually want to do, what feeds me, and I take the time to give myself that training jiu-jitsu, going to the gym, fucking, you know, recently it's been walking down to the lake by my house and just sitting by the lake. I think I took a whole half-hour nap, you know, a couple weeks ago, but just like giving myself the space to do the things that if I were to 2 years ago, if I were to tell other people or I would tell myself, it would have been like, dude, you're fucking, why are you doing that? It's a waste of time. Like, or like, you're weird or you're whatever, insert word. When it's like, no, this is actually what I want to do. I need. And when I've given myself that permission, it's been like, oh man, the success, the energy, the health, like everything seems to fall in place once I was willing to be like courageous enough to just do what I want instead of worrying about whatever the fuck everyone else is gonna say.
When you say that, it makes me think of I there was a period where I think the Gita probably is my second or third most read book, the Bhagavad Gita, and in there was what was it? Chapter 2, verse 47, you have the right to work, but never to the fruit of work. So it's do the action for the love of the action, not for the result. And so going to what you're talking about, like, you know, you talk about golfing, you weren't going for because you wanted to golf, you're going because it made old girl happy. And that was the result. For me is, oh, I have this project that seems cool, but I want to do it because I'm afraid of not having enough money. Something you talked about earlier in our thing. And it's born, like you said, it's born out of that fear, or it's born out of something that is not true to me. And so what you're saying is timely for me. Part of one of my journals, my journaling is, what did I do yesterday for the sake of doing it, just for the love of doing it? And that prompt, I mean, I don't know how many days I'm on with it, but it's a reminder to do things for the fun of doing it. Like, this is what I wanted to do. And we could make a bunch of money. It can completely shit the bed. Don't care. I did it because it's what I wanted to do, and I had fun doing that. So that's what, when you say that, that's what comes to my mind.
What other you seem? I think we're both very practical guys, but we also are very open to things in the sense like I was at a point where I'll fucking try anything. You want me to breathe like a maniac for a half hour with a room full of dudes? Whatever. You say it works, I'll try it. You know, you say just fucking staring into another man's eyes for minutes on end, whatever.
We've done that.
It's like, what I will try it. And because I'm looking for the result, I'm looking, does it work? You know, I'm not here to judge the process and go, oh, that's weird or that's whatever. Are there other things that you have crossed that threshold on in the sense of like, you know, you find yourself doing it, practices, habits, mindsets, even, you know, a previous Chris would have thought it was different, weird, abnormal, not for you?
Absolutely. Bro, like, this is not as crazy as what you're talking about, where, like, you know, me and Hector been in rooms where, like, you're staring in some dude's eyes, you're just hugging a dude for like 5, 10, like, you're just sitting there and you're hugging, and then you just start crying. And like, me 10 years ago, I've been like, what is that weak ass shit that you were doing? Like, what? Or like, so as of late, yes, I'm like you, were okay. And our boy John Vroman, shout out to Front Row Dads. He said something that stuck with me, is like, when he participates in these activities, he's all in, open-minded, and like, to your, like what you just said, there's no judgment. I'm gonna do this thing, and it seems kind of weird, but I'm all in. Whether he's at church singing a hymn, or he's in Indonesia with some tribe or something, and trying, like, just be open and be all in and see what comes from it. But I think the one of the bottom for me one of the foundations of being open and being all in is being aware and being present. I'm here and I'm fully here. I'm talking to Hector on this couch here in LA. This is where I'm at. Like, this is what's going down right now. And in that, man, there's peace, there's freedom, it's fun. And it goes back to that doing it for the sake of doing it. This is all that matters right now.
I think it's hard to do what we talked about when guys haven't really done the work to quiet the voices. I forget sometimes how peaceful. Or excuse me. I was especially reminded how peaceful I have it, right? Because there's someone who's like trying to meditate and they can't turn off their brain and all these sorts of things. And I forget that on the other side of that, like you can sink into a moment and you can be present and you don't have to be worrying about, but until you do all that work, your head is going to be filled with all of this bullshit. And there's all these things going on in your head. And there's all these voices and programming and all this shit that comes up. And so I think for a lot of guys, they just go, well, must be nice. It's like, well, we have to go through these sorts of things, clean out the muck, and then you can enjoy some of those fruits. And unfortunately, that muck is like, it's painful. It's weird sometimes. You've got to sit with uncomfortable things. And I think that, and most guys haven't been exposed to that way, right? They only know the macho, the hard, the super masculine, aggro sort of way to be a man, and they don't see that there's this other side, this other possibility, and I think it's a detriment to it.
Bro, you're hitting on another principle. I'm digging this. This is my favorite type of podcast. Like, you're hitting on a principle that's near and dear to me. It's my own, like, whatever. I think that, or I know, at least in my experience, there is for anything that is worth getting, anything worth it, and it's usually something hard, anything worth getting that's hard, there is most always this necessary period of suck. You have to go through the suck to get on the other side of it. Whether if like you're counting your macros and you're watching your health, is that always fun? Like, people were yesterday eating the In-N-Out burger and that looks delicious. And if you want to hit your goals, you can't just pound that burger. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. So if you want to lose weight, there's this necessary period of suck of changing your diet and saying no to foods that you typically would just say yes to. That's not fun. And then eventually you go on the other side of it and that discomfort becomes more comfortable. Business. You got a business. When it comes off when you don't just say, oh, I'm gonna start a business, and the next day you're just swimming in money. It's like, no, you want to start this business. And then there's a necessary period of suck where things just suck. You're up late, or you're not getting any business, or you're stressed out. And then you get on the other side of that and business is a little bit better. Jiu-jitsu, same thing. 10 years of necessary suck to get a black belt. Like, there's always that period. And so, to your point, I know guys who are like, oh, I can't meditate because my mind, I just can't. That's the point of meditating. Like, that's why you should continue to meditate, because you can't turn your brain on. And that's hard. That's hard to do. But then once you get on the other side of that, however long it might be, and then you just start quieting down by 10%, then 10 more percent. And then next thing you know, like, oh, okay, my brain's still going, but it's not going at the rate it was going. And I'm also not attached with it. I've stepped out and I could watch it now. But that's after years of going through the necessary period of suck to get there.
I think, guys, that suck thing, guys don't have to suck. That's not what I mean. But I think we were both talking to Eric Collette, who's at this event, and we were talking about how necessary it is for people literally at the cellular and the biological level for them to do hard things. Otherwise, like, literally their energy factories in their body will start to reduce itself, right? And so if we are not actively putting ourselves into things that suck, that we're essentially shortening our lifespan. And I think that the key difference for me that I've tried to lean into recently is that the suck doesn't have to come with suffering. That things can suck.
Good. That's good.
Without me being miserable.
It's really good.
And it's usually just from simply doing what you were talked about, and that's reframing it. If I can just reframe it, and instead of like, oh geez, like another hard jiu-jitsu session, or I'm like, I think about, for me, like, there's this moment in a jiu-jitsu session between you're doing drilling and then live rounds are about to start, and it's like, all right, everybody go get their mouthpiece and everybody go get their water, and it's like, you can't. I've heard that voice in my head go, all right, just take off your shirt, like time to go. You could be an easy excuse for you to leave. Nobody would say anything. And it's like, it's leaning into that and going, well, okay, here's where I get my extra cardio. Here's where I like finding the reasons to go through that suck. And then oftentimes, like on the other side of it, there's the rewards tend to be, much, much greater. And I think that a lot of guys could lean into those things more, right? And put themselves in those positions more intentionally.
I think it's that thing is what you're talking about is tribal, right? Like different religions, different cultures back in the day and even to this day have had some sort of, for a man, like a rite of passage. Like you go out in the jungle, you need to go kill this thing, and you come back and then you're a man. Or you need to go through whatever that ritual was from culture to culture. There was a rite of passage. I think it's in our DNA to go do some hard stuff. And that is for a reason. What? I don't know, but it's in us. At least it's in me as a man to like go towards things that make me uncomfortable. Do I always do that? No, but I'm doing it more than I have in the past.
I think it's important for guys, especially, to go through those things so that they know when shit goes down that there's something to lean.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I was talking with my son, and his mom is going through some health issues, and I went over and I was talking to him. I was like, dude, I'm going to be leaving for a few days. If your mom needs help, do you know what to do? And he was like, he was on his iPad at the time, and he like paused and realized that like it was like super. His conversation was like, no, what do you mean? I was like, do you know what number to call? And he's took him a while, like, what are you talking, And we went through this sort of like prep phase, and I sort of like pressure tested him, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start yelling at you. And I want you to it's going to be a high pressure, because if this happens, it's not going to be like easy or a cakewalk or, like you're going to feel the stress of it. And so if you're not prepared for it, if your nervous system is not ready for that, I mean, it's very easy for your brain to go blank. I mean, I was sharing this with some of the guys yesterday. Like there are times where I'm rolling with somebody and I'm stuck in a position. I know exactly what I should do to escape. I see it like in my head. I'm like, I can see the pictures, but the brain to body connection is just not there. And my nervous system is freaking out, trying to just stay alive. And I don't have that ability to access that information because it hasn't kind of been hardwired in there to the extent that it needs to. And I think that guys sort of can stand to walk themselves through those situations or put themselves in positions where their nervous system is sort of tested so that, heaven forbid, something happen. We're talking about, at this event, sort of cataclysmic or apocalyptic, sort of, heaven forbid, guys are put in that position. Can they deal with something? Like, do they have, the balls to be able to step up into that situation? I would hope so, but I don't know.
There's a lot of wisdom to that, man. It's like you gotta, at least for me, let me speak to me, is I've had to get the reps in. So let's take this event, for example. We are in an event. There are no slouches in this room. No slouches in this room. I feel like I probably have the lowest IQ in the room. Might be one of the least successful. When I first got into a room like this 3 years ago, I was like just like so intimidated, and all the imposter syndrome and all the stuff that goes in your mind mentally, it was happening. And it was I've seen that happen to other people. And that was their first and last event because of that feeling. I've had to then put myself in another room. In another room, until being in those types of rooms and those types of atmospheres became normal. And for me, the whole goal of that is, hey, like if I want to be a high performing man in all the areas of my life and in the areas of health, wealth, and love, but I only got friends around me who just maybe are great at, in the area of love or great in the area of health or whatever. Like I'm not around other people doing what I want to do. How am I going to do it? If I want to be super wealthy, who do I know that's super wealthy? Like you got to get in those rooms. My point of all that is, I had to put the reps in to then be comfortable enough to be in this room. I had to put the reps in to be comfortable enough to be in this room and then be on a podcast in this room. You put some people on a podcast right now, they'd be like, because I was that way in my very first podcast. I was nervous as hell. But again, reps of doing something that's very uncomfortable until it becomes less uncomfortable.
Yeah. One thing that it was a both gift, and I realized later on it was a crutch, and that's that I could blend in with anybody, in the sense of like I could connect and relate to sort of anybody. And growing up, maybe that's because I had black friends, and I had white friends, and Mexican friends, and I had Asian friends, and I had, I sort
There's
of
something to that though, bro. There's a lot to that.
I had to, and I sort of picked up on the fact that these people, if I wanted to get along with these people, I needed to act and talk and hang out differently than if I wanted to be with, these
Yep.
people. And I think that the kids sort of, they call it code switching. But what resulted though is, as an adult, I would do that, and then I would go into these rooms, and then I would end up not being myself.
Oh, I feel that.
I would lose myself. And as a kid, it was sort of a survival sort of technique to be cool or to be accepted or whatever. But as an adult, I realized that I was all of a sudden creating connections and relationships with people that I didn't fully align with, or maybe our values or ethics or whatever, or maybe I wasn't connecting. All of a sudden people weren't like, and so I'm like, man, what is going on? And it was only when I was able to answer the question. Someone asked me, they said, who are you? Introduce yourself without talking about your family or your work. And I was like, damn, I can't do that at all.
Yeah.
Because my whole identity was wrapped up in, I'm a dad. I'm a good dad. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a pot, like all these sorts of things, which all revolved around family and work. And it was only when I was like, okay, well, take all that away. Who am I? And I was like, oh, I'm this curious guy. I'm full of wonder. I'm full of curiosity. I'm full of questions. I'm full of, start going down. I'm like, oh, that I can take into any. And now if I know that, like, that's who I am, I'm not, and then I can stop feeling sorry or apologizing for being that person. And if that rubs somebody the wrong way or offends somebody or whatever, which I was always worried about, are they going to like me? Are they going to accept me? My abandonment wounds sort of flaring up. Are they going to leave me or reject me? All of a sudden, because I knew who I actually was and there was really no changing it, it was like, give a fuck what they think anymore. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, instead of repelling people like I was because they always thought something was weird or was off or whatever, I started attracting people like Jason, who brought us together for this event, or all these people started coming into my life who I didn't have to like pretend, or I didn't have to act to be around them. I could just be myself.
Yep.
And everything sort of flowed.
There is. Oh, again, I love that comment, and I can relate. I can completely relate. My parents are Jamaican. I grew up in Texas, but my parents are Jamaican. And so long story short, I was never like Jamaican enough for the Jamaicans, but like not black enough for the black dudes that wasn't African American. Like there was a cultural difference. So what I do, I end up hanging around this hodgepodge of first generation immigrants, like our hodgepodge of first generation of different immigrants. So whether it be Vietnamese, Indian, and whatever it is, we would just all kind of hang out. But to your point, I'd be in all these different circles. Where I grew up, there was a bunch of cowboys. I would hang out with the cowboys, hang out with the black dudes in the basketball team, hang out with my little like whatever it was. But in that, I never identified like really who am I? I was just a chameleon. So even coming into rooms like this, like I'm used to, you know how it is, bro. Like we've been in rooms where you probably the only Hispanic dude, I'm the only black dude. Like saying it's mental chatter can happen with that. And it's taken a while for me to be like out of that and like, yo, this is what you get. And I am not attached to what you think about me for good or bad. I'll notice it and I'll acknowledge noticing it. But like, it's not my job to paint how you picture me for good or bad. I think a lot of my life was, how can I paint myself in the best light in this room? How do I need to act to be liked or accepted? Whereas this is it, man. This is what you get.
And I think that is essentially, I'm going to ask you in a little bit. I'll give you a heads up of what the definition of modern masculinity is, because I asked all my guests. But I think that is essentially what guys have to define for themselves.
Yeah.
Who are they? And then be willing enough to bring that flavor of masculinity to, the fucking rainbow of colors and whatever that we have. And it's only when guys can like figure out who they are that I think the rest of that works out. Chris, if people want to get more connected with you in your world, where's the best place for you?
I appreciate you asking, man. You can reach me at Yo Chris Gray on most all social platforms. I'm Yo YO Chris Gray, ChrisGray. I post everywhere, but like if you want a response from me, like not somebody else or whatever, you want a response from me, I'm typically on Facebook with Messenger. I'll respond there. But yeah, that's the best way.
We'll link all that up. And in your opinion, Chris, what is the definition of modern masculinity?
It's like the yin and yang of masculine and feminine energy. So feminine energy holds space. Masculine energy takes up space. So the modern man, to me, can do both when appropriate.
That's it.
Peace.